Hey friends, happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. And before we dive into the content, I need to let you know that somebody special is having a birthday tomorrow. My mom is celebrating her birthday on July 26th, and I would love it if you would spam the comments down below with some birthday love for Mama Nancy. In today's video, I really want to talk to you about my Alabama retreat, and I want to share some tips and tricks that maybe will help you if you're considering or planning to go to a retreat in the future. But before we talk about all that stuff, I need to remind you, if you are a part of my VIP program on my website, this is an exclusive access membership program that I charge $5 a month for. You get all of my patterns for free, access to a monthly Zoom that I host the final Sunday of every month, and a quarterly virtual retreat. If you are a member of that program, guess what? Our virtual retreat for this quarter is coming up this weekend. We've got a project planned, we've got games planned, and we've got some giveaways as well. So you want to make sure that you check your email for all the details for this retreat. And if you are not a member of my VIP program, I don't know what you're waiting for. It's only $5 a month, and you can find a link for all the details on how to sign up in the show notes down below. Okay, so let's just get right to it. Alabama. What is it? My Alabama retreat is what I would call a private retreat. This is a retreat that a couple of my friends orchestrate. They rent out a facility and they plan an agenda and a bunch of projects for us, and they organize who's coming and get all that stuff taken care of. And we show up, we take over the facility, we work on the things that we're going to work on, we enjoy our time together, we make progress, hopefully, on a bunch of projects, and then we go home. It's done every year in July in Alabama, which leads me to question number 2. Where in Alabama is this retreat? I've kind of skipped around this question a little bit. I really haven't answered it directly, so this is me answering it directly. The retreat that I go to every year in Alabama is in a little town called Scottsboro, Alabama, about an hour outside of Huntsville. The retreat center is called the Grand Oak Retreat Center, I believe. It is run by a lady by the name of Heather, and for your facility rental, you have access to 4 bedrooms, each with their own ensuite, a kitchen area, and a massive recreation space that's set up for all things quilting and sewing. She rents this retreat center out to all sorts of groups, mostly crafters, but there are some women's groups and Bible studies that take place there as well. This is a gorgeous home that Heather and her family live in, and the retreat center is really in the basement of their massive home that sits on top of a mountain overlooking Lake Guntersville. I could talk about this retreat center forever, but I know most of you aren't here to be sold on renting time at the Grand Oak Retreat Center. So I'm going to stop the sales pitch and I'm going to talk about our time at retreat. What was it like? This year was different for us. Normally, when we go, we check in on Monday and check out on Thursday, which means we're settling in on Monday afternoon. We have all day Tuesday to sew and do all of the things. And then Wednesday, we have to wrap up, pack up, tear down, because we got to be out the door at 9 a.m. on Thursday. It's not a lot of time, especially when you're considering that I'm driving about 10 to 12 hours one way to get there. Yeah, that's a bit of a hike. This year was different. The stars just completely aligned and we were able to get the retreat center for a solid week. And it sounds like that's going to be the case next week too. And I am completely stoked about this. This means we checked in on Thursday and then checked out the following Thursday. So we had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, 5 full days of sewing without having to worry about setting up or taking down. It allowed us the opportunity to set up and get settled in and visit with friends on Thursday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and then Wednesday, wrap up, pack up, and tear down and load up our cars. And we didn't all have to cram that into just a couple hours after dinner. We got to do it throughout the day, which was really, really nice. So we were there for 5 days. What did I get accomplished? Well, not as much as maybe I would have had I been home, locked in my studio, focused on getting stuff done for 5 days. I'll give you that. But I did make some progress. The first reason why I didn't make as much progress at retreat as perhaps I would have at home is because I allowed myself time to relax. I didn't treat this as a working trip. I treated this as a vacation. So I spent some days doing lots of just binging TV shows that I wanted to watch, taking naps throughout the day, or just talking and hanging out with friends. I was focused more on being at retreat on a trip away from home with no children to take care of, no puppies running around the house, no husband to deal with, no job to answer to, just no responsibilities. And man, was that great. Well, I actually did have one responsibility, if I'm being honest. The second deterrent to my progress was my mom. And I say that in a loving way. I don't mean that to sound like I was any way upset with her. Mom decided this year to sew. Every other year that we've gone on retreat, she has not taken a sewing machine. She has taken yarn and crochet hooks, and that's what she works on. Occasionally, she might pick up a small project like cross stitch or a sashiko, and she'll work on that a little bit. But this year, she wanted to continue her journey on making quilt tops. And boy, oh boy, did she ever get it down. When we left, the plan was that I was going to bring both of the sewing machines, the baby lock that I gifted to her, as well as my Juki, and we were going to take our layer cake pop quilts that we both started. However, what I realized when I got down there was I packed mine and I didn't pack hers. So hers didn't get finished. But fortunately, she did have some other projects that we had strategically planned for her. The first one was a jelly roll race. A friend of mine gifted a jelly roll to my mom, and another friend gifted her some fabric to use as borders for that jelly roll race. And with the help of several ladies at the retreat center, she was able to figure out how to get a consistent 1/4 inch seam allowance without marking her lines on her fabric at all. And I am super proud of her for this. She used that new skill set to piece together a complete jelly roll race with borders. Now, for some people like Tiffany, maybe me, this is something that you could easily do in an afternoon, maybe a 3 or 4 hour sew tops. For my mom, it took her the better part of about 3 days. But every stitch that was put into that jelly roll race, she did herself. And she learned important skills along the way. The second thing that she worked on was a panel quilt, and this one kind of frustrated me a little bit because I was afraid we wouldn't be able to make it work. You see, on our way into town, we stopped at a quilt shop called Lana's, and I knew that she was going to need something else to work on just in case she got all of her quilts finished. At the time, I thought her layer cake pop quilt was packed, and it wasn't, so it's a good thing that we made this purchase. She saw a panel that she loved and she got two of them. And then she wanted to get some fabric to go with those panels so that she could turn it into a throw quilt for the back of her couch. The problem was we had no idea what pattern she was going to follow or what she was going to do to know how much yardage to buy, so we winged it. We found two grunges that worked really well with the panel that she picked, and I just got 3 yards of each. I figured worst case scenario, I had extra grunge, which would be great as a blender, and it's not a bad thing to have on the shelves behind me. Looking back on it, she used almost 2 to 2.5 yards probably of both of those. I don't have a lot of the grunge left over, so it was a good call to go with that 3 yard cut of each. Once the jelly roll race quilt was done, it was time to move on to the panel quilt, and I really needed a little bit of help with this one because I couldn't figure out the math, and cutting apart the panel really kind of intimidated me because they're always askew. I always have a hard time getting them straight. My friend Kim, however, taught me how to start the panel properly and how to get it cut out so that all the quotes were nice and square. You see, each of the two panels that Mom bought had 8 Bible verses or quotes on them. And so we had 16 squares with these quotes on them that we wanted to put into the quilt. She really liked the blue grunge fabric that we bought, and so our idea was to put a thin border of that blue around each of those 16 quotes and then separate them out with some negative space by using a cream grunge, and then finish the whole thing with that same blue grunge as the borders. I did not think this quilt was going to get as big as it did, but man, it got pretty big. The quilt top's all done, and we have actually passed that on to my friend Kim from Passageway Quilting, who does long arming services, quilt restoration, finishing your UFOs and works in progress that maybe you're just not going to get to, all of that stuff. She has a business that I would love to promote. So if you're looking for long arming services or quilt restoration or help finishing a project that you want done, but you just don't have the gumption to do it, her website and contact information will be in the show notes down below. Let her know Becca sent you her way. Those were the only two quilt projects that Mom really worked on. That panel quilt took her the better part of a couple of days. The jelly roll race took her about 3 days to do, but she started and finished two amazing quilts at that retreat, and they are pieced flawlessly. At least in my eyes, they are. She did a phenomenal job on both of them. So I've spent the past several minutes telling you about all the things that my mom did at retreat, but I haven't told you what I did. Well, I didn't get as much done as I had hoped. And again, that's because I was resting, I was socializing with friends, and I was helping my mom. But I did make some major progress. I like to do the puzzle mystery quilts from Cotton Cuts, and this time around for Village Green, I'm doing two of them. I'm doing Begonia as an ambassador for Cotton Cuts, but I'm also doing Bluebell as a personal sew. Both of those puzzle mystery quilts are in the size large, and Begonia stays caught up because I try to do that on a live stream every month once the clue ships. But Bluebell has fallen way behind because it's a personal sew and it gets deprioritized on my list of things to do. I actually really love the colorway for Bluebell, and I think this is going to make an amazing Christmas gift for a special someone. So it's important to me to get that quilt top finished, or at least caught up, so that when Clue 10 is given to us in November, I'm ready to go. Well, that meant I had to put together like 4 of the 5 clues. Clue 6 had just shipped as I was pulling out of town, so I didn't have that with me, but I did have 3, 4, and 5 that needed to be pieced. I only had 1 and 2 done. So at retreat, I got Bluebell fully caught up. Of course, when I came home from Alabama, I was immediately behind again because Clue 6 was sitting on my desk waiting for me to piece it. Have I done it since I've been home? No. Hopefully I'll do it before Clue 7 ships. Speaking of the layer cake pop quilt, yeah, the one that I was supposed to pack for Mom, but somehow left behind. And to be completely honest, I don't even know where it is, but it's here in my studio somewhere. I did pack mine, and that is the one quilt top that I got finished. I made all of the blocks while I was at retreat. Everything was done, nice and starched and pressed, sewn together, and then I laid out all the blocks, and I allowed my Quilty sisters to decide how the blocks should go together. My friend Edie had a great idea for how to kind of block the colors and balance them all out, and I took her up on her idea and sewed all the blocks together in the layout that she came up with for me. Once the quilt was pieced together, I was quite pleased with how it came together, and I immediately folded it up nicely, and I handed it to Kim and asked her to perform long arm services for me on that one. I don't know how long it'll take to get back, but I can't wait to see what she does with it. I've given her total creative control on this one. She's going to pick the design and the thread color and send it back to me, and then I'll bind it and I'll show you what the quilt looks like when I get it back. Some of you out there are asking yourselves, now wait a minute, Becca, you have a long arm. Why are you sending your quilts out to others to quilt? And the answer for that is I don't have the time to do all of my quilts. You see, my long arm does not have the automation built into it, which means every time I put a quilt onto my frame, I have to put every single stitch into every quilt that's loaded and unloaded. Am I capable of it? Yes. But it's also a matter of prioritizing what's important. There are some quilts that I just need to get done. I don't need to have any fancy custom quilting. I just need a consistent nice all over design so that the quilt can be marked complete and moved off of my shelf. For those quilts where I don't want to do the quilting myself and I just need them to be done, I am supporting small businesses by sending quilt tops their way and allowing them the opportunity to make a little money while I get my quilt completely finished. Now, hopefully, this is just a short-term solution because I do plan, hopefully, knock on wood, within the next couple of years to buy Pro Stitcher for my long arm so that I can multitask. I can have the automated quilting going on the long arm while I am working on some other things. It would be great if I could multitask. So what did I get done at retreat? I caught up my puzzle mystery quilt clues. I finished my layer cake pop quilt. I spent time with friends, and I helped my mom enhance her skills and get a couple of quilt tops done. And that's it. I definitely overpacked for this retreat because I'm going to tell you right now, I took way more than those 2 projects to work on. I want to share with you 3 lessons that I learned about my time away for a whole week so that if you're planning to go to a retreat in the near future, you can consider them and make sure that you're set up for success. The first one is be realistic about your time. Only you know how long you realistically would be able to sew from start to finish and how much you can get accomplished in that time. Additionally, you know roughly about how long it's going to take for each of the projects that you have in mind. So as you're starting to get a pile of projects to take to retreat with you, keep that in mind. Make sure that you have some variety to work on, but be honest with yourself. Don't pack a month's worth of projects for a retreat that's only going to last 2 days. You'll be disappointed when you have to pack it all up in your car, unpack it at the retreat center, not touch it, pack it back up in your car, and bring it back home. Take some stuff. Don't take everything. Tip number 2, make sure you have all of your essential work areas represented so that you can be as efficient sewing as possible. I like to take my sewing machine with me, a small pressing surface with a small iron, and a small cutting mat with my favorite ruler and a rotary cutter. This way I can make sure that I don't have to stand in line behind anybody to press my fabric or to cut my fabric. And speaking of cutting fabric, if you have a project that you're going to work on at retreat, I would highly encourage you to cut all of the quilt and label it before you go. This way you don't have to spend hours at retreat cutting out a kit. You can just get right to the sewing. The last tip that I have for you is to embrace the experience. You are going to be away at a retreat where there are other quilters who share your same passion for quilting. What an amazing opportunity that is. Whether it's virtual or in person, it doesn't matter. You are spending time with other people who enjoy quilting just as much as you do. Live in that moment and absorb it and take advantage of it. Don't be so caught up in getting your projects done that you don't have time to talk to the other people in the room. Get to know them, form bonds with them, socialize with them. And you know what you might find? Some of those quilters may have some skills or techniques that will help you in your project. And you might even find a new quilty best friend. I absolutely love my time away in Alabama every year, and I look forward to it. I cannot wait for next year. I am already excited for next year, and I just got back. I can't say enough good things about retreats. They're amazing. If this is something that you have always wanted to do, shop around for one that fits your budget and that you're going to be able to travel to and sign up. There are a number of folks out there hosting quilting retreats. The So Yeah Brothers have an all-inclusive one, I think twice a year out in Vegas. That would be amazing. But Stitch in Heaven has one in Texas. And you know what I found? Since the world has opened back up, local quilt shops are even starting to have seminars and workshops in their storefronts again. And guess what? The pandemic brought us amazing technology that allows us to connect with other quilters virtually. So if mobility is an issue for you, if cost is an issue for you, or you just don't have the time to be able to travel and take away from home, Virtual options are out there too. You should look into those as well. Thank you, friends, so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys all this Friday night on our live stream. And for those VIP members out there, I'll see you at the retreat. Bye.